The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game, show about short video games, games that respect your time. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined this week by two bouncy co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
And your roundest co-host, the chonker, Shane Kelly.
What a good orb.
Yeah, it's a great orb. And this week, we are going to be talking about Subpar Pool, a game that was released last October by Grapefruit Games. Games available on all sorts of different platforms: Steam, Nintendo Switch, iOS, Google Play, and it is $9.99. This developer is one that we really like.
$5 if it's on mobile.
Oh, nice. Yeah, okay. I played it on my Steam Deck, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But this game, Grapefruit developers, Grapefruit Games, put out a game that we loved. And I don't think we ever actually did it on an episode specific, but it's not unlike some other sort of heavy hitter mobile games that we've loved, that we've talked about on probably 100 episodes in the history of this podcast. And I think that made us particularly excited about this game. You guys remember playing Holedown?
I
remember it. I played it this morning.
You played it this morning?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
It's one of those games that it feels pretty infinitely replayable.
Yeah.
I haven't touched it in a long time, but Julia is playing it all the time, and because of that, my son has started playing Holedown. It's a very it's a bit of a Zen version of Breakout.
Yeah.
And I think it's very similar stylistically to this game, but this game I'm very excited to talk about. I think it's a big step.
Yeah.
I appreciate Hold On a lot. I think it's fun. At times you get in the black hole mode, you've like powered up all your things and you're just going infinitely down. And then I often will just reset it and start over from the beginning.
Yeah.
To kind of because I want to do more cool stuff. But I think Hold Down is just very soothing. I found it very calming.
Calming is an interesting word, because I agree, but it also becomes almost a like power fantasy game also by the end, where you're just unloading like a torrent of the balls into the brick breaker style game that we're all used to. And I don't think there's any other version of these types of games where you become so overwhelmingly strong and you just have like such an like a powerful amount of balls that you're releasing, which is very, very
was
satisfying.
Mentioning that black hole mode, and Nate, what I think you're kind of alluding to there is the incredibly powered up level that you get to pretty quickly in Hold Down, or especially if you kind of complete the progression of the game. Hold Down kind of had a power scaling problem where you would kind of get to this fun end game, and the game just kind of stayed at that level and didn't have much change, really any change after that. And that's what I think was so interesting about this game. So I think it'll be fun to talk about how customizable it is and how you can really adapt this game to whatever just mood you're in.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think we're all pretty excited to talk about Subpar Pool. But it also got me thinking as I was playing this game that like there's a whole world of games that I think we've probably all been in or around that I don't think we've ever really talked about on this show, and that is bar games. Things like pool or ping pong or shuffleboard. What is Shane? I'd love to start with you. What is sort of your relationship or experience with bar games?
I would say that pool is the number one, bar game for me. Not to say that I'm good at it, but one of the things that's been very nice for me is throughout my life, I've had lots of relatives with pool tables and friends, and being able to just mess around on a pool table. There's something wonderful about the kind of pure physics and angles of pool that is just infinitely fascinating. Like, no matter how young or old I've been. And so totally will always gravitate towards pool. That said, I suck at it. And so these days, when I'm actually in a bar, I have uh, friends who are, I have a good friend who's tried to teach me darts.
Yeah.
And I will, I can hit the board sometimes, but literally he was explained the rules to me over and over again. And I think the flaw is that generally it's in a bar and I've had a couple of beers by the time he convinces me to try darts again. So
Yeah, the dart seems to have a complicated scoring system for a
it
bar
does.
game based
What's up with all
on
those numbers? I thought it
Yeah,
was
there's
just
a
based
like
on
archery. Aren't we all trained to get the bullseye?
I watched the game, the trivia show Only Connect, and occasionally the answer is a dart puzzle, like the sequence is a darts thing, and every time it's absolutely mystifying. Do not understand.
Yeah, I think there are multiple different types of dart games that you can play, and it
Yeah.
depends on what everybody wants to play. But for the most part, Shane, I have had a similar experience to you, which is that if I'm in a bar and I'm going to play darts, I'm pretty much just going for a bullseye. Isn't that what we all want anyway?
I
Yes.
enjoy it because it's dangerous, and like drinking and throwing things is fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've gone axe throwing once, but like axe throwing is a whole thing.
Yeah.
Darts is a like improvisation. Like you just decide to play darts, and you can be doing it a second later. Axe throwing, you have to like pay money and sign a
Yeah.
waiver, and good
I've done dart.
reasons.
I've done axe throwing one time, and it was a ton of fun. And I was like, at least compared to my group of friends, I was somehow better at it than I would have expected,
We
which was
also had
kind
a
of fun.
savant in our group. It was not me.
But they also had like the axe throwing place had things like ninja stars and stuff, and
Oh,
I could throw an axe, but I like almost impaled myself with a ninja star because those things bounce, and it was bad.
sometimes the axes bounce too.
Yeah, but hopefully not as far back as a ninja star was
True.
bouncing. Um, Laura, have you played a lot of bar games in your life?
Yeah, so I don't play a lot of pool. I haven't really since like middle school events, but there was a really nice bar in downtown Chicago called the Chicago Athletic Association that had a game room, and it was classy. And we always went as like an event for like before a bachelorette party or bachelor star. Like it was kind of the drop in thing where like people who weren't invited to the full party would go play some games, and then like the people who wanted to go drink the whole night would go
Yeah.
off. So that it was kind of the starter. Um, and it's just really nice to play like foosball or shuffleboard,
Hmm.
casually drink, like hang out with your friends. And then for us, it was, and now you may opt into the 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. portion of the evening, but the day of
Yeah.
casually playing games and drinking was almost always the starter package.
Nice. Yeah. Pool is something that has been a kind of a part of my life for a very long time. My dad used to, like, because he's way cooler than me, was literally like a pool shark when he was younger. He would go to like pool halls and just with like $20 and
Really?
leave with like,
Hustler.
yeah, he would make money playing pool. And so we got a pool table when I was in like middle school, I think. And so I played a lot of pool. And then when I spent a lot of my life playing live music and spending a lot of time in bars. And the one thing that like every venue has in common is that they almost always have a shitty pool table. And the
Hmm.
thing about playing music is that you have to get there generally speaking, you have to get there really, really early to do like sound checks and stuff like that. But then you're just stuck in like a shitty bar for the entire
Night.
evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, from like, sometimes like 3 o'clock in the afternoon until like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Whew.
And so we would just end up playing a whole lot of pool. And it was something that there was a time when I considered myself pretty good at it. I think big picture, no, I was not actually very good at it. Just like in my little bubble of people, I was okay at it.
Mhm.
And I really loved it. I think Shane, when you talk about like the angles, that is, I have that same sort of like, I can't exactly explain how I feel, but there was just something really deeply satisfying about just trying to pull off that exact, corner shot or the perfect bank shot and, miss it 9 times out of 10. But when you do pull off that perfect shot, there are very few things as satisfying. So I haven't spent much time in a bar in the last 5-6 years for a lot of different reasons, but for a good 10-15 years of my life, I was playing pool a lot, uh, but not nearly as fun as Subpar Pool. I wish that I could. Like this game makes me think about future like AR or VR style things, where we're all gonna be locked into chairs with some sort of crazy haptic feedback systems.
Oh,
Uh,
speaking of which, have I ever told the story of the weird ping pong ball I went to on a work trip to London?
no, I don't think so.
How do you
Uh,
go to a ping pong ball? Was it like a ping
a
pong
ping pong
dance?
bar. It was a ping
Okay,
pong bar, but it was like an incredibly fancy. I don't know how much they paid per table, but it had like projections, like AR, like on. So when the ball bounced on the table, like effects animations would happen to where the ball
that
bounced.
that's awesome.
And they like rotated. So like sometimes it'd be flowers and sometimes it'd be like ripples and sometimes it would be like hamburger. Like it was just like stuff would happen on the table as you were playing. And then you could also like that sometimes the paddles would light up and it was just a very disorienting experience. I was
Yeah, I
so
bet.
jet lagged. I was being forced to play like weird holographic AR influenced pinball and I was so I flew overnight, landed at like 9 a.m., had to go to a day of meetings, and then they forced me to play pinball. And I was like, I don't know where I am. What continent am I on? So I thought it was a kind of like, I was like, I didn't really experience this, right? That was just something. And they're like, no, look it up. And I watched a video and I was like, oh no, I exactly remembered that. That was what was happening.
That's
That was
awesome.
real.
I was actually just the other day talking to someone about, and maybe this exists and I just have never seen it, but um, I would love to see a bowling alley start to integrate stuff like that, where like imagine if you're bowling and on the lanes they actually like had projected like score multipliers or
Oh,
like
yeah. So the
different
ball would like
things.
roll over.
The ball would roll over and trigger different things, and like let's get wacky with the pin organization too. Why does it always have to be a triangle? Like I want to see bowling has been the same forever. Like let's bring in or maybe some AR elements where you have to hit things down the lane instead of just all the way at the end of the lane. I think there's like some really cool stuff. Like have you guys done Top Golf, which sort of takes driving range
I have been
and
wanting
make
to, but I've never done it.
I do not
yeah.
know what this is.
So
Top Golf?
Top Golf, yeah,
They don't have Top
now
Golf where she is. There's no such thing as Top Golf in New York. Top Golf is basically like a gigantic driving range, and they're usually these like multi-story buildings that are open entirely on one side with a huge green and nets all around it.
mhm.
And people will kind of uh, rent time there like you would at a bowling alley, except you're doing driving range shots off of the side of a big building.
Yeah, and all the balls have RFID chips in them, and there are targets out in the field that you're trying to actually hit the ball into. And some of them are like really close, some of them are really far away, and you have a TV screen there that is tracking every one of your shots and awarding you points. So there's like different games, much like darts, where it might be who can hit the farthest or who can hit it into blue, green, red, yellow. in that order or something. And since you are elevated, you are kind of a couple stories up if you're at the top. Even if you're not really good at golf like myself, you can at least kind of hit the ball far because you're starting up and you're just hitting it across. Yeah. So it's kind of taken something like golf, which is, not really accessible to a lot of people or really fun for a lot of people, and try to make it more of like a party game. And
Cool.
I think that I want to see more sort of stagnant games like golf integrate things like that, whether it's like bowling or like maybe pool or ping pong, like you were talking. I think we're probably pretty close to a lot of that stuff starting to come out. Or if it exists and you're listening, let us know. I'd love to see some of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Golf does kind of have more of a party vibe than people really thought. Have you seen any video out of this year's Waste Management Open? Apparently, this was on TikTok. So Waste Management does this golf tournament, and it's historically been a tournament where people get very rowdy in the audience and very drunk
well,
and
with a name like
truly
Waste
wasted.
Management
Yes.
Open, how can we?
I guess it's the Phoenix Open officially,
Okay.
I mean,
or
I
something.
have gone to like weird hacker artist collective
Uh-huh.
mini golf courses in warehouses.
Yeah.
Mini golf is great, but it's not big like
That's
Top
true.
Golf.
Well, it's kind of in the name.
Mm-hmm. But with all this talk of bar games, I do want to take a chance and throw out a couple of the things that I actually do in real life at bars.
Okay.
Which, to me, bar games these days I'm talking bar board games.
Yeah, I was
Same.
gonna say
And
Reagan's not
That's
here to
almost
ring.
always what I end up doing.
Reagan's
Right.
not here to ring his bell, but I know where this is going, Shane.
How do you know where I'm going with this? Of course, Magic the Gathering is on the list, but I'm going to focus on a few games that I really do love to play in bars. And for me, to bring a game to a bar, it should be something that is portable, not too big, not too crazy complicated. Should be something that hopefully I won't cry if I spill a little bit of beer on.
Mm-hmm.
And so my favorite game that fits that category is Hive. I don't know how many times, if at all, I've talked about Hive on this podcast. I don't think I've ever played Hive with either of the two of you. Have I?
But I've played it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Hive is a beloved two-player bug chess. It's a tile placement game. And one of the things that makes it perfect for a bar environment is those tiles are a heavy, thick, uh, uh, very clunky plastic. And so it's a great game to play at a bar because especially it doesn't need a board. You take the pieces out of a bag and those bugs form the hive. It's a chess-like game because the objective is to capture your opponent's queen bee. And fantastic game. I love it very much. I also have recently picked up a new game that I think might fit into this same kind of arena a little bit. It's called Radlands, and it's also a two-player 1v1 game. Nate, you're nodding. Have you played Radlands?
No, but maybe it was you that told me about this game because I just recently added this to my list of wants.
Yeah.
I
Well, I'll tell
don't know
you,
if it was you or
I picked up Radlands. You should get it. It's great. If you like two-player games, and I do. And this one, it's also nice for a bar because the game itself is quite small. Really, it's kind of the size of a double deck of cards plus a little bit of extra space for tokens. Depending on which version of the game you get, I think there are different kinds of bits you can get with it. But the version that I bought has plastic cards that are waterproof. So, hey, great for a bar.
Nice.
And also heavy, chunky, I think acetate tokens. So the Radlands is a 1v1 fight over water resources in a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland.
Classic.
And the gameplay is really, really interesting. You have 3 bases that are randomized from a deck of bases, and you protect them with characters that you put in those bases, and then you launch attacks at your opponent's bases, and the person who loses their bases first is the loser. And the gameplay is, I would say, quite inspired by my beloved collectible card games such as Magic the Gathering, a Hasbro Wizards of the Coast property. But the fact that it's played from a shared deck and doesn't really, it's nowhere near as complex as a real game of Magic. It kind of scratches that itch, though, especially in a very portable game that, as I said, kind of the size of I don't know, like a couple of cell phones, big cell phones stacked on top of each other. So good
Nice.
one for taking to a bar. Do you guys have a favorite? Oh, you know what? There's one last one that I love that Laura put me onto, and that is Love Letter. Love Letter is a great bar game because it's of its size. Laura, can you explain Love Letter? Because I'm sure I cannot.
Yes. The thing to remember at Love Letter is it's so easy that kids who are just learning numbers can do it, because basically if
Wow.
7 is bigger than 5, you are more important. But Love Letter is a combo of like a deception game, but a little bit lighter. You have a role up to the princess. So the idea is to get as your love token as close to the princess as possible, without getting stuck. So it's a training game. It's a bluffing game. It's incredibly light. The rounds are about 10 minutes. And it is 9 cards, I think. Like, that's the whole deck. I have a beautiful, I think, Japanese edition, but the Western one is great. It's $10. The easiest thing. I can put it in a pocket, in a girl's pocket, like a women's pocket, which isn't a real pocket. Like, Love Letter is fantastic. And you can play it while drunk, because again, even if you're confused about the rules, you always remember, like, if you know what number is bigger than the other, you can get through it. So works throughout the evening.
Nice.
Citadels is a more complicated version of that I played in a lot of bars in Seattle. We would play like a couple rounds, and then whoever was down would get the next pitcher.
There you
Which
go.
is a
Tie it
bad way to
in.
keep
Yeah.
keep that
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, honestly, I've not really played a lot of board games in bars. I think I've done it a handful of times. I remember playing Dominion one time in a bar, which was not really it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying, Shane. It was lots of cards that could easily be ruined,
Dominion and
and
Bar, yeah. That's
yeah,
not only is that a lot of cards. Whenever I've played Dominion with people, Dominion's a very old game with lots of expansions. I think most people who I even see have Dominion these days have one of these big box,
massive.
like meta edition of Dominion,
Yeah.
or they've
This was a while
yeah
ago. So it was before that game kind of folded in on itself and became the massive thing that it is now. But
yeah
yeah, I
Yeah,
it's
Coup
intense.
and Citadels both have Coup is great too, but it requires more bluffing.
mhm.
People are not great at it that in bars, so people just kind of can't bluff anymore. Um, I think that they have little tokens though. Love letters, no tokens. Like love
Nice.
letters, just cards. It's
I
easy.
do love Coup. I was playing Coup just a couple weeks ago with a group of friends. That is an all-time classic.
Well, I have to since Reagan's not on the show, and you did dare me to talk about Magic here.
Mhm.
Um, there's a concept in Magic called a cube, which is basically you have a collection of cards that you like, that you keep together in a box that you can draft as a group, right? And it's really the highest form of Magic. It's a curated collection that people are drafting and playing together. There's an idea that I have been tinkering with and kind of putting cards in a little box for, called a bar cube. And the idea of a bar cube is it's a tiny version of that, really like a small box full of cards meant to be drafted. And in particular, for a bar environment, the thing that you want for a bar cube is Magic is super complicated. There are counters and dice and special tokens that you might need, et cetera, et cetera. So for a bar cube, you try and make something that doesn't need any of that. So you disqualify any card that creates a counter on another card, or makes a token card, or any of these different like rules that require any extra bit that's not on the card, which is a surprisingly tough thing to do when you want to cut that whole swath of game design out of a game like Magic. So fun little project. And I'm hopefully when I have my bar cube together, I'll let you know how it turns out.
Yeah. Well, we'll expect a report on it.
I do have one more actual bar game because all the pieces look like coasters. Skull.
I love that.
Skull is just a bluffing game of, did you put out a flower or a skull? And that's basically the whole game, but it's just coasters. Like there's a little bit more like there's more to it, but like they're pretty coasters with skulls on one side and flowers on the other. You could probably play with your bar coasters, and you're betting which one you put out. Like it's great. It's better with the more people. Easy party game.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, I will have to take some of these recommendations and give it a shot. I'm not spending a lot of time in bars right now, but maybe I should be, just to play some of these games.
You can also invite people to your lovely house.
No,
only bars.
I'm doing them at a bar. Well, why don't we talk about the reason why we're here this evening to talk more about Subpar Pool. What a delightful little game. Shane, I think you maybe caught on to this one first. You want to give us sort of a rundown of what this game is?
Sure. Subpar Pool is a game that combines a little bit of golf with a little bit of pool, and with quite a bit of just general video game wackiness to produce something that really just feels like a fun hybrid ball bouncing game. And we called back to Holedown, which is a great ball bouncing game, kind of a la Breakout, but not really. And this one, more or less, controls like the kind of long history of video game pool, where you have a kind of a control to set your angle, and in many pool games set your other attributes like how you're going to spin it and things like that. But this keeps it very, very simple, beautifully simple. In Subpar Pool, you have not one pool table, but a world that is a series of 5 pool tables. And the pool tables have unusual shapes and arrangements of their holes. They're not a standard pool table. They are sometimes shaped like rectangles. Sometimes they have weird protuberances from the bumpers along the side. And there are multiple worlds for you to progress through, which each has a different, I believe there's 4 worlds. Each one has a different gimmick to that world. Like one of them has little portals that you can shoot your ball through or bounce balls through. One of them has holes that move. One of them I have yet to unlock. So, and then I should say, there are very few balls on each table. That you'll sink all the balls from a table and then just move on to the next one. Usually like 3-ish balls on the table. And on top of the strange tables and the quick jumping from table to table, you also have cards that add modifiers into the game. And challenges that are associated with those cards. So on top of just trying to line up your shots and sink everything and make it through the different, they're kind of structured like holes of golf. Each of these tables is like a hole of golf, and there is a par, which is why it's Subpar Pool. I think that's a great name. It's a little clever turn of phrase, but you are trying to actually get less than par in the number of shots that it takes to sink all these balls. And then on top of all of that kind of addicting, simple craziness, you have special balls, like I mentioned at the top of the podcast. I called myself the Chonker. Well, there is a ball in the game that is called the Chonker, that is Reagan inspired. It has his mustache, and there's an assassin ball that like chases your ball. There's a crystal ball that can break, and the part of the brilliant thing that they've done here is make each of those different balls, by making them these cards, you are turning on and off the different aspects of the game, and they keep trying to tempt you through the use of the challenges to play a set of tables with a different set of cards and options enabled. So I think I've explained about as much of it as I can here. Yeah. I think it's a really cool game. Did you guys enjoy it?
I did. And the game does have some procedurally generated content for the table shape.
Yes.
The press kit claims that between the tables and the 18 cards, there are 14,000 combinations, which math, wild. I think I definitely didn't see any repeats, and I think this has the same charm as holedown. Like, when you start playing badly, the little sweaty, anxious balls make me laugh every time. Sometimes they look scared.
It made me think of threes also.
Yeah.
The little faces they all have and all the little characterizations and the personalities. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it felt really satisfying. It felt like a combo of a lot of different types of things. I was expecting to be way better at this game at the start because I played so much holedown, but the aiming did not transfer. It's totally fair. I just am not as good at bouncing off of bar tables than invisible walls and bricks.
Yeah. Yeah, this made me think of there's been a long lineage from the beginning of the internet of like sort of shitty little mini golf games that have been around forever on Flash games and so on and so forth, that like I just feel like I've been
That
playing.
Lifesaver Flash game was not shitty. It was life-changing,
Okay,
mate.
please, through varying degrees of quality, there have been little mini golf style games for as long as there have been computer games, I believe. And
it's tragic that we're getting onto the subject of golf video games on an episode
without
that Reagan's
Reagan,
not on.
I know. And pool games. And this one just felt like, what if we actually put real development time and a real team behind making a game like that? And what would it be like? And I think that's this. It's quality all the way through, and it just feels really, really nice. I really like the way that the challenge cards sort of challenge you to try the game in a way that you wouldn't normally. There's one relatively early on. When you are aiming, you can see where your ball is going to go, where your cue ball is going to go, how it's going to hit the ball that you're aiming towards, and then generally the direction that the ball you're going to hit is going to go. So that can make it, some shots relatively easy if it's a simple bank shot into the hole and it's right there. You can almost, tee it up in a way where you're going to make it. But the further and further away you get from each of those things, the more you have to sort of eyeball the angle and see if you get it right. But there's also a challenge relatively early on that turns off that feature. So you really are just playing by eyeballing the whole thing. And at first I was like, damn, I don't want to do that. But it made it, it was a fun little card to turn on, and you were rewarded with more challenges, more different things. It's sort of the gameplay loop of all of these things. But actually succeeding at that challenge was satisfying. And so I like how the game takes its generally simple concepts and just turns them all on, turns them all off, layers different things on top of each other, and makes each game feel pretty unique.
There are, even modes like you have limited amount of time, fast run, for example. There are so many accessibility and modular options. You can really customize the heck out of this, including turning everything on at the start of the game if you want to, rather than unlocking it. I was tempted to do it just for ease of reviewing. Lord knows sometimes I need to skip to the end button.
Yeah.
But I played through like I was supposed to, and really enjoyed the way it stripped out. I never felt like it was wasting my time, giving me a challenge that was too easy to where I was, or like too repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like pocket 2 balls, pocket 3 balls. It's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the different ball types are fun. The chonker, I think, is my favorite. It's the first one you get, and it's just a ton of fun.
Well, Chonker might be your favorite, but like I was so excited to see what the heck happened with crystal balls.
Crystal, I think is the most satisfying one. So Crystal is a ball made of crystal that I think it's after 4 bounces, it completely shatters.
Yeah.
Which
Each time
also
it bounces, it gets smaller.
Yeah.
Little pieces break off in an animation, and it gets tinier and tinier and tinier, and then poof.
But what's
it's gone.
nice though is that it getting
little
completely
Band-Aids.
destroyed counts as getting it into a hole too. So it
Uh-huh.
kind of change it. You could either, from an objective standpoint, you could either try to sink the crystal ball like you would any other ball, or if you can hit it in a way where it bounces off enough things to where it shatters itself, well, that works too. And I found that to be a fun challenge.
Yeah, I really liked the challenges around that. Like there's, there'll be challenges that say, don't break a single crystal during this run, things like that. And yeah, the my favorite thing in the game, I think, really was the portal. This is the second world you unlock. It's not really one of the balls, but the the tables are quite small, and especially when they have some weird shape to them, it can be a real challenge to bounce a ball out to a hole. But having that uh, portal from one side to another that kind of appears at different random spots around the outside of um, the different bits of the table really opens things up and gives you some cool problems to work with. Like, can you bounce the ball through the portal to get to the hole, or can you shoot your ball through the portal, or bounce off a wall into the portal? It really creates a lot of fun openness to what is, for the most part in the game, these really tight little tables.
Yeah, it just makes it's the angles, man. It's the angles. It makes them even more complicated when one of the walls are gone, and if you hit the ball through that, it's going to pop out at the other side of the pool table. I really like the portals as well. I also like how the game deals with failure. So your goal is there's a par, so it'll say like you might start with a table of 3 balls and you have 3 shots to make it. And if you or 3 shots is par. And so if you are able to make it in 3, you get par. Anything below that, it's subpar. And you get a nice big thing on the screen. It goes real big, subpar, And then if you fail to make par, you get 1 more shot. and everything gets a little spookier. Like the line that you can see when you're lining up your shot turns black, and the little characters seem a little more nervous, which is adorable.
So
And
anxious.
yeah, and if you still fail to sink all of the balls on the bogey shot, one more than par, you lose a heart. You have a set number of hearts before that you start the world with, and also all of the balls that you failed to sink now end up on the next table as like dark black balls, and they are there to obstruct the game for you. And your goal then is to not sink them. If you sink the black balls, then you lose some points. And so it does sort of like, everything is so fast that failure is not a huge deal in this game, but I love that sort of scaling where it gets more and more complicated if you struggle. And I find that satisfying.
Mm-hmm. I just remembered that I played another game by this developer. We talked a lot about Holedown, but did either of you play Twofold Inc?
No.
Yes.
Fantastic game. It is I'll just describe it briefly. It has very little to do with this game, or they did another one called Rimmed Capsule that I did not play. But Twofold Inc. is a simple, great-looking puzzle game that has just really interesting kind of drawing to connect tiles gameplay. That's a little bit Tetris, but there's no time limit. It's about I found it really, really, really interesting and carefully balanced. That's an old one from all the way back in like 2016, but it's still a great game today.
Yeah, it seems like this company is. So if we think that is sort of Tetris like, and then we've got this, which is pool / mini golf, and then you've got Hold Down, which is sort of a interesting, well designed twist on a block breaker. Like they're kind of going through these long time existing game genres and creating just really fun, vibrant, and very polished versions of those games. I wonder if I don't know. We've got their press kit somewhere around here. I wonder if they even if that is their design ethos, because it seems to be a trend.
It is odd. They talked in this press kit about the game originally not starting off as a pool game. There's a weird anecdote. It says initially it was inspired by the kind of kaiju Godzilla attack genre, and that the player was flinging themselves along walls and through city streets to wreak havoc on a city, which is a very different game mechanic than pool. And they said how they kind of got over to the idea of pool from there. I think that actually reminds me to mention something we didn't mention about the game, which is the rounded corners. There aren't pockets in the corners, and so the corners that aren't pocketed are have like a gentle curve to them. So you have lots of it's tricky to do actually, but very satisfying to kind of roll your ball around those corners as a way to get around walls and things like that. So very, very interesting. I can kind of see the through line there. But yeah, anything else that I don't know where I think I've lost track of my own thoughts here.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting a Godzilla sort of kaiju conversation to come up from this, but yeah, it's interesting to see.
I still haven't seen that new Godzilla movie. Have you guys seen that new Godzilla movie?
Godzilla -1?
No, I missed it in theaters, so I'm waiting for it
went out
to.
and got to see it in theaters, and I did not, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, and then they just re-released it as Godzilla -1 - Color. Have you seen that? That's incredibly compelling to me as well.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any of them.
Its release window corresponded with like a series of head colds that I did not know if they were contagious or not. So I did not want to go to a movie theater. And then I got over them, and then it was like, finally, no. The release
Damn.
window.
Oh, man.
I live in New York. I cannot complain about movie availability. Period. But
That's fair.
this one case I can. Anyway, like this game just felt like you're in good hands. Like everything is beautiful, animated. There's a little extra polish on everything. You can flip between landscape and portrait. You can turn stuff off. Like you can play one-handed. Like it. This is what a premium mobile game looks like. It's
Yeah.
just been taken care of. Like I don't worry about my game save on this thing. Like I don't. I
Very
don't have to
nice.
worry about
Yeah.
anything.
It's very
Yeah.
slick. I actually ended up buying the game twice, which, I guess I'm contributing to the success of it. But mainly because I bought it initially for $10 on my Steam Deck. Just because I don't think you said, hey Shane, I think you're the one that brought this one up. Actually, I'm not sure I am. Somebody in the Discord maybe brought this to my attention.
Sounds
I
right.
wish I remembered. But
I had an
after I
alert for
bought
their
it on the
games
Steam
too.
Deck, I played it for a while, and then I realized, oh, this is perfect as this would be perfect as a mobile game. Like it's nice to be able to play it on my Steam Deck and throw it on my TV or my PC or my computer or whatever. But I know I will actually play this game the most on my phone. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting things there is they have reformatted the game to the two different screen orientations in a way that I really like. When I first played the game a little bit, I was like, well, the UI seems like it's a little off, and I went into the settings and adjusted like the scaling of the UI. But what I realized is they've built this game to be kind of responsive to different screen sizes and orientations. The Playing it on a TV or computer or what have you, the tables are horizontal on screen, and on a phone it plays in portrait mode, and everything is aligned perfectly that way. So yeah, I think it's nice no matter what you're playing it on, and I think I will, at least on one of those devices, have to take advantage of the unlock everything button. So because I don't think it's
That's a perfect reason to buy it
yeah.
twice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I play it on Steam Deck, and I gravitate towards Steam Deck now with anything that
Yeah.
anything that can play on that. That tends to be my preferred platform. I will say that I think probably if I was making the choice again, I would go towards an iOS device or Android device. I think the sort of twin stick element of it has been a little clunkier than I would have liked,
Uh-huh.
but it really hasn't been a problem. I think just if I was starting over, maybe I would pick my phone versus the Steam Deck, but it's still been a ton of fun on Steam Deck.
Mhm.
And the kind of game that is nice. Like I was traveling recently, and I was playing a different game that we're playing for the show, and I just was able to pop over and play a little Subpar Pool, play a few rounds, play a few worlds, and that was very, very nice. So I think you'll be happy wherever you get this. But I think it's probably a smoother experience playing it on something with a touchscreen like iPhone.
Yeah, I
Laura,
agree.
what were you playing it on?
I was playing on my phone.
Nice. Okay.
I put it right next to Holedown on the screen.
There you
It's
go.
like there's all my weird daily things I play, like Fall in London, Learned League, Framed, and then of Broadway ticket lotteries, and then the next round are like actual games.
Yeah. Nice.
um,
Cool. Well, we knew this was going to be a shorter discussion, not out of lack of enjoyment for the game, but just that it's very polished. It's very straightforward. It's kind of exactly what you want from a game like this. Is there anything either of you can think of that we haven't touched on yet that we want to discuss for this game?
I want to know what you guys think about the visual style of the game, because it is I'm gonna criticize the game only a little bit, and only based on its visual style. There are some things I really like about the visual style of the game, but each of the worlds has a background that is, to me, incredibly busy. and a little distracting. Like similar to like they have this tiled visual background that you guys listening at home will just have to trust me on this one. It's like a tulle fabric in bright colors. It's got lots of little teeny tiny detailed illustrations, which is odd for the background of something that is as simple as this game is. I really do like the way that they do a sort of a stippling effect on a lot of things, including the shadows. That's quite lovely. And I have kind of mixed feelings on, people. I heard some affection for the chonker, and I also have some affection for the chonker. But to call the ball a chonker and to put a like a millennial like a do mustache on it and have it be just the big chonker feels a little bit old person to me. So I don't know about some of those aspects of the game. None of that held me back from my enjoyment of it. I am just a curmudgeon who has a podcast. So
puzzlingly, the press kit called the art style French, and I just wasn't going to mention that because I did not understand what
it's
made this French. They said French art style, and I do not know what they mean by that.
French. I guess the
mustache, I guess.
The mustache is kind of French, but the rest of it is, I mean, it's literally a white circle smiley face. The color scheme, the one thing that I will say, all of the games from this developer have an absolutely lovely color scheme. I just think if they simplified some of the busy backgrounds in this game, then it would help the rest of it shine through a little bit. I know it's a stylistic choice, and I think they have a great looking game regardless. So I will drop it now.
Yes, I just double checked my sources, and yes, they do claim a quote stunning, vibrant French inspired art style. So maybe they think busy backgrounds are French. I don't know. I thought it was okay
Swedish,
at illustrative.
So what do Swedes think about the French?
Yeah, the Swedish interpretation of the French art style is what we're discussing here.
Yeah. So I found it a little, but I was also playing mostly in portrait style, and those backgrounds are not as prominent in portrait style. So like there's some of it, but it's not as overwhelming. So I think I probably didn't notice it quite as much because I also have a wee little phone. So
yeah, and I'm just not super observant, so all right.
I'll also say the music was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. The sound effects are fun. Again, this is a complete package, I think.
I like the sound a lot. I like the cue ball. When you get trick shots, like the game's quite good at like calling out, oh, you did a rebound. Back-to-back shots. The cue ball announces your trick shots in a tiny, adorable voice, and that did not get annoying for me at all. It was a very, very cute sound.
I like one of the very first challenges is just do 5 trick shots, and it doesn't really care what trick shot, whether it's like bouncing off the wall, bouncing the ball off of itself, going through a portal, whatever it may be. It just says just do 5 trick shots, and it's satisfying. All right.
And the rest of the game has these very bubbly sound effects.
Yeah.
That are,
I can think of no better way to end than on that pop sound effect. I got nothing better.
Nope. So I think we've got a little bit of time left, though. Why don't we run through some things that are making us happy? Shane, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I was tempted when it looked like we might have a gap in the schedule for the podcast to go back and do a whole episode of just me ranting about the game that I'm playing right now. That is Helldivers 2. If you were a listener to this podcast in many ages past, I think 9-ish years ago,
Yeah.
The uh, the creators of the game Magica, which I think we also covered, made a top-down dual-stick shooter wherein you and other random internet-connected PS4 owners would drop these space marine types down onto these planets and role play your greatest Starship Troopers fantasy, right? Um, and the dream of being in the American cultural parody Starship Troopers is alive and well, and
Yes.
it's back on your PlayStation 5, or PC. Starship, I call it Starship Troopers. The Helldivers 2 has switched the game from being a top-down dual-stick shooter, which I love dual-stick shooters, so I was a little skeptical at first, to being a third-person, um, more straightforward shooter, right? But structurally, the game is the same. It's a really, really great game. I think it's right now having an enormous launch. I think it's been out for about a week as we record this, and they have had uh, I don't know what the numbers are. It's hard to
It's
say.
everywhere.
Yeah,
It is
it's
blown
huge.
up. Yeah.
It's really blown up. I should say that there have been some launch issues for the game. There were some server issues, and they've had to put out a few patches in the interim, mostly related to keeping the servers running around matchmaking for the game. Um, I've had no problem at all playing it with two of my friends who have downloaded the game. We're enjoying it a lot. The Some of the most unique elements about the game are the way it handles your items. You have a pretty much just a set of these things called stratagems, where you have to dial in a special code on the D-pad that might be something like up, down, left, right, up, down, left, in order to call down these drops of equipment that come in these giant bullets that you can, if you get lucky, actually kill enemies with. Um, Apart from that, the game is just also a really fun, really tight shooter experience without being overly complicated. You're not going to have a lot of like a ton of different items. You've got the stratagems. I think you'd have at max 4 of them, as if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that it's co-op and there's no PvP element and it's just goofy, crazy fun. You do die a lot. Friendly fire is enabled fully from the beginning, so
It's such a
you'll
funny
end up
choice.
blasting each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humor to the game. I think actually
Yeah.
it's important to call this aspect of the game out because it has that sort of over the top, um, exceptional, bombastic kind of style that Starship Troopers had. And in this case, there's a lot of intro and talk and chatter in the game about, everything's for Super Earth,
Mhm.
saving the universe in the name of managed democracy. Liberating planets from the alien bug overlords, things like that. So very, very funny game, and just the chaos that you get from these kind of fairly tight maps full of actually kind of complex objectives. Every objective, once you get to it, will have at best one of these D-pad codes that you have to put in under fire.
Nice.
And at its most complicated, different parts and items to grab. One of my favorite ones is preparing and launching a nuke that then blasts half the map and catches you in this enormous mushroom cloud. And the game is visually really gorgeous. It looks like, I would say it's kind of a double A game at a double A price, but visually it's like looks very triple A. So
Nice.
I can't recommend it enough. I tried to start a big discussion about it on the Short Game Discord. and I managed to get one person interested. But meanwhile, my non-short game friends are all loving it and playing it a lot. So,
well, it's not a short game, but we
not at all.
did, like you said, we covered the first one back on episode 48. So long time ago.
I continue to reserve the right to discuss games that are not short on this podcast, no matter how much annoyed listener mail my brother gets about it.
Yeah. I loved
just don't check the inbox. You'll never know.
Exactly.
I loved the original Helldivers, and I'm very, very intrigued by this. I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, but I'm very much going to because it sounds great. The original was a ton of fun, and by all accounts, this is even better. I mean, it is incredibly popular right now. So
I think it's an interesting thing to look at. I think you should get it, and if you do get it, let's shoot some bugs or the communist automatons. This is a really interesting moment in the games industry, and I'm not quite sure what it means. This is a great example of Sony's strategy of releasing games simultaneously on PS5 and PC. So I am playing it on PC. The game has crossplay. When it launched, there were some issues that kept it from working on a Steam Deck, but I am playing it now on my Steam Deck and my PC with my PS5 owning friends.
nice.
And for the most part, when I'm playing just grouped up with them, no problems at all. There's been, like I mentioned, some early bumps in the road with the matchmaking. So they do need to continue to invest in more servers for the game.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, I think you should get it and go shoot some aliens with me.
I would love to. Well, I'll go next. I'm going to be quick. I was traveling over the last week because I went skiing over the weekend in Colorado, which is something I've done one time before. And it was a ton of fun. It is completely opposite of what my normal day-to-day life is. I'm normally sitting in a room staring at a computer all day, and so going and flinging myself down a mountain for 3 days straight was a ton of fun. The entire act of skiing is an absolutely absurd exercise. The fact that it's a sport that begins at the top of a mountain seems like it should be inhibiting for just humans to do. But the fact that we've built this entire ecosystem, this entire structural system that allows us to even do it is wild. But yeah, I had a great time. I think the most interesting thing though from the entire trip is that it was good. It was fresh powder, my dude. The amount of ski like jargon is hilarious, but it was good. But probably the most remarkable thing that happened on this trip is we were in had a really nice rental house out in the middle of the woods, and there were these massive icicles hanging off of the side of the house, and one of our buddies got the genius idea. We had made a fire late at night to do like s'mores and all that, and he decided to roast a marshmallow on an icicle, and it worked far better than you could imagine. It was incredible. So we roasted marshmallows using icicles. It was magical.
That sounds like something out of a cartoon.
Yes, exactly. But there was a funny part where our buddy was like climbing up onto the deck in order to break off icicles, and another buddy was down below trying to help, and we all just kept screaming, "Stop looking up. Don't stand under him. Stop looking up." So fortunately no one was impaled by 3-foot long icicles. And instead we had tasty roasted marshmallows, and it was a great time. So they will work if they're big enough. So that's what is making me happy. Laura, how about yourself?
So you were healthy and outdoors, and I'm going to just a
Every
not so
once in a
healthy
while.
indoor activity, which is baking. So I live in a small apartment and I'm lazy, and there's 2 people in my house. So I like baking, but I often go to a website that I'm really excited about looking, and there's 30 ingredients, and it takes 4 days, and you have to laminate and put stuff in the fridge, and I just like give up. I can't even get through the recipe, let alone like do it. I made something with laminated dough during the pandemic, and it took me a day and a half, and then I messed up the last step and put too much cardamom in them, and they were inedible, and I cried. So that's not what makes me happy. What's making me happy is I recommended the book Snacking Cakes in the past. There's a sequel called Snacking Bakes with a B that has cookies and bars and breads and some cakes in it. But the same principle holds, which is none of the recipes in the entire book take an hour from like getting the ingredients out of the refrigerator to being on the table.
Nice.
There's
That's important for me.
One bowl. No more than one. Just everything takes one bowl. There will be few ingredients, but they will be like used in multiple recipes. Like I bought some freeze-dried blueberries. I can put them in 6 recipes in the book. Like I don't feel bad about spending the $5 on freeze-dried blueberries because I get to stick them in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
No mixer. You can use a hand straw. Like, so it's just basically like, what if you just, by the time the oven is preheated, the stuff was ready to go in the oven. And then you had cookies or brownies. I made a bunch of batches for a cookie exchange in the fall, but we've had like, there are maple espresso, like really thin cookies, like the really crunchy ones. White chocolate macadamia nuts, which is Justin's favorite, like a Mrs. Fields dupe that's better.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cookies too.
Like I made them and I was like, these are the best things I've ever made. I was like,
Laura, you're making me hungry.
I was like, I shouldn't know how easy these are to make.
Yeah.
Like, and we currently are eating our way through like a corn corn cookie with cornmeal in it that has a blueberry lemonade like topping on it. They're so good, and I look like a genius, and I don't spend any time on them. So the other thing I like about it is the cookies. The recipes are small sized, so it's like an 8-inch square for the cakes, or like 18 to 20 cookies. Like you're not making like, there's enough that you run out of cookies in a sane amount of time, even if you're a small family, and then you can make another recipe. So you're not like stuck eating like 40 cookies because you did a Pioneer Woman. Yeah. It's just all my irritations about baking like gone away with in one book. So I am thrilled with Snacking Bakes. Justin's lab is thrilled. Like everybody's very happy that like there are good, interesting cookies coming out of my apartment. And may y'all all enjoy a lot of interesting cookies without a lot of effort. Like that's all I want.
And what a blessing upon all of us. May you all have interesting
May you
cookies.
all have interesting cookies.
May you live during interesting cookie times.
Well, she also is like, here's how you freeze dough. So you could just like make a bunch of these and stick them in the freezer, and then like make 5 cookies when you want. I don't know. So many things are the perfect version. Like, here's how you make the perfect cookies, and it will take you 4 days. Or here's how you make the perfect lasagna. Like, sometimes you just need food.
Yeah.
You just need a snack.
That's awesome.
That's what this book is for, and highly recommend. The recipes have all been bangers.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I guess that'll do it for this episode. So nice chatting with you folks. If you're listening and you want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon. The show is entirely listener supported by listeners like you listening right now. This show is supported by people like you. Patreon.com/theshortgame. Patrons of any level get access to our private Discord server. It's where we're really making a lot of game selections, where a lot of recommendations come, a lot of really good conversations about the games that we're covering, and anything and everything else. So if you want to join our awesome little community, get away from the fractured landscape that is the current social media world and come and hang out with some cool people, consider joining the Patreon. You could also leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That also helps us. And we appreciate all of our patrons and those of you who are considering joining or leaving us a review. We appreciate you as well. If you want to contact us, you can find links to all of our social media on shortgame.fm. We also have a contact form, which is a great way to get a hold of us or make recommendations. And Shane, where can people find you online?
The shortgame.fm has been working so well that I think we might just start pointing people to that. It's got all our socials, links to everything we just mentioned. I will just reiterate the call to action to, hey, please give us those reviews. That is how the podcasting world works.
Yes. Absolutely. Laura, how about yourself?
Don't forget to find us on YouTube, where you can click like and subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you, Shane. We are now on YouTube. So smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell. Do the likes. All the things. We're YouTubers now. We're doing it, folks.
If you're listening on YouTube, leave a comment.
Yeah.
You can find me. My links are on shortgame.fm, except my Blue Sky's not on there. But generally, you can find me at Laura J. Nash everywhere. Laura J. Nash at bird.rodeo and Mastodon.
Shane, I think you're right. We should update that and just point everyone there 100% of the time. But until that day, you can find me on all the various socials at NateSTL. And that'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks, everybody. Bye.